And welcome to the October 27th, 2021 meeting of the Air-Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, our regularly scheduled monthly board meeting. I have some things to read here at the outset. They've changed a little bit because of our state law changing. So in conformity with the September 16th, 2021 enactment of California Assembly Bill 361, and due to concerns over COVID-19, the Air-Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council meeting will be conducted entirely with call-in option or internet-based service option. So if you wish to address the board, the numbers in the agenda. If you're listening now, you've already put it in, so I'm not going to repeat it. When you'd like to speak, press *9 if you've called in, or the raise hand function in Zoom. That's to speak on any item on the agenda before the board takes action on that item. Comments from the public on agenda items will be heard only when the respective item is being considered. Comments from the public on other matters not appearing on the agenda that are within the board's jurisdiction will be heard during the general public comment period. Please note that under the Brown Act, the board is prevented from acting in a manner on a matter that you bring to its attention during the general public comment period. However, the issue raised by a member of the public may become the subject of a future board meeting. Public comment is limited to 1 minute per speaker, unless adjusted by the presiding officer of the board. If there's any broadcasting interruptions that prevent the public from observing or hearing the meeting will be recessed or adjourned. If members of the public are unable to provide public comment or be heard due to issues within the neighborhood council's control, the meeting will be recessed or adjourned. Public comments not required to be submitted in advance of the meeting. Any messaging or virtual background behind a board member is in the control of that member, and their personal capacity does not reflect a formal position of the neighborhood council or the city of Los Angeles. And that is our lovely introduction to the current operating rules on Zoom. Welcome. The meeting is called to order. It's 7:03 p.m. We will start with, if Mr. Schlesinger is so kind to raise the flag, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just realized I should use my left hand instead of my right.
All right, well, we'll get you caught up on your flag protocol later, Mr. Schlesinger. Since Nikki's calling in tonight, I'll call the roll. We're going to do the roll calls in alphabetical order per Robert's rules. There's a reason for this. One, it's so that we're not all blocked by our various homeowner groups in order that way, and or constituency stakeholder groups. And the other is so that you know when your name is coming, because it's going to be by last name alphabetical. And please don't chime in for somebody saying they're not here. This way we can get through the roll perhaps a little bit quicker. So unmute when your name is coming up that you've been memorizing since grade school, where you are in the alphabet. So, or since you took another name at some point. So let's go. Barondes.
Present.
Bayless.
Present.
Evans. Alternate Cobb. And needs to be promoted. Okay, hold on. Bradford Cobb. Garfield.
Present.
Goodman.
Present.
Greenberg. Here. Hall.
Here.
Holmes. Caden. Kennedy.
Here.
Levotman.
Here.
Longcore present. Lowe's.
He's unmuted.
He's there.
He's muted.
Okay. Mann.
Here.
Izala. Minor.
Here.
Morris.
Here.
Murphy. Palmer. Ringler. Roy.
Here.
Sandler.
Here.
Savage. Schlesinger.
Here.
Spradlin. Stroloff.
Here.
Steele.
Here.
Stoika.
Here.
Tanner.
Here.
Wayne.
Here.
Weinberg.
Here.
Wimbish. Okay. Bradford Cobb is alternate. Bradford, did you make it on to the?
I did, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just to confirm, Christy Holmes, Scott Caden, David Scott Caden, Patricia Murphy, Dan Palmer, Robert Ringler, Jason Spradlin, John Wimbish.
And one of our Laurel Canyon Association alternates needs to be promoted to be a panelist.
By the name of?
Bobby Love.
I'm not aware that we have a person by that
Robert
name on
Kwan,
our
Robert Kwan.
roster.
Yeah, Robert Kwan is on here.
Robert Kwan.
Right. So you're saying Robert should be here to sub for whom?
Hold on just one second. Just let me, I'll get back with you in just a second. Let's see who we sub for.
All right. Thank you. So by my count, we have 23 present. So a majority of 23 is 12, just for the record. Agenda has been circulated before the meeting. Is there any objection to approving the agenda by unanimous consent? And hearing none, we'll adopt the agenda as circulated. The minutes of the meeting previous have been circulated. Is there any additions, deletions, corrections? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Mr. Schlesinger?
I'll second.
Is there any objection to adopting the minutes by unanimous consent?
I just need to abstain. This is Heather. I wasn't present.
Okay, so we will use Roy abstains. And no others. It brings us to item number 6, which is general public comment. And Vadim has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, point of information. 2 weeks ago or so, I attended the redistricting meeting, and during the vote, 6 people abstained. And it was ruled that during the abstention is equivalent to yes. Do we operate under the same rules?
We do not. The city has a special code for commissioners that says if you don't vote, you vote yes. We specifically in our bylaws do not count abstentions as yes votes. Our votes are a majority of those voting. Mr. Hall, you have something to add to that?
I just wanted to confirm that Robert Kwan is the alternate, and he's going to be subbing tonight for Stephanie Savage, who is having a planned absence.
Right. Has he done any of the trainings? Or...
You know what? I told him to. I don't know. I'll touch base again in a second.
So here's, I'm going to promote Robert, but I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of him being able to vote tonight.
Okay, that's fine. This will be his inaugural.
Yeah.
So.
We'll need a letter that formally appoints him. And
I
then
emailed Kathy about that.
Okay.
I can put it on our letterhead. If
yeah,
you want.
letterhead would be good. And then we will get him signed up with an email and all that rest of stuff so that we can get the training done.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. General public comment. So anybody, members of the public who are here would like to speak on an item not on the agenda, now's the time to raise your hand or press *9 on your phone. And seeing none, we can move along to comments from elected officials, city agencies. I see, let's see, I see Mehmet Berker from CD4 here. Would you like to start? followed
Sure.
by Jarrett Thompson from CD5.
Yeah, I can go. Everyone can hear me all right?
Yep. So maybe 2-3 minutes.
Yep, sounds good. For updates, redistricting, the commission is meeting to adopt their final report tomorrow. I assume that's going to be their last meeting. At that point, it's going to go to city council, of course. And as folks may or may not know, at that point, it's a city council process, and the city council can take what the commission has given them, change it, put in something completely new. It should be the same number as it was prior if you all want to make comments on mapping or anything like that. And I will have to grab that number, but be that as it may, should be coming for a first hearing on November 2nd. And then we were part with some other council members to propose an ad hoc committee for it. So we'll keep you apprised as to how that's going through. On the street width verification letter, our team has been in receipt of that, and I was just chatting with Michelle, and I think we're looking to meet and follow up on that, but she's in receipt of that. Just another update that filing fees are going up from the planning department on December 27th of this year. So just got a ping from them to remind folks that if you're going to start something where you need to submit filing fees to the planning department, it might be a good idea to try and get it in before then. It's not guaranteed that they went up. They didn't go up for everything. You know, as I recall, was mainly for kind of commercial and larger things like that. But, you know, it's always possible that it could touch, say, a residential project or something like that. So you might just want to be aware on that front. I think the last things would be, I see SB 9 on your agenda later. So just to know that we have raised concerns regarding hillside development with regards to SB 9 with the planning department. And Michelle is going to be meeting with the planning team and working with them and trying to get answers to any questions and clarity on that front. So we're definitely engaged on any implementation there. And I think probably the final thing is that our affordable housing overlay motion was passed today. We had strong support from Councilmember Koretz, which we greatly appreciate. So we actually will get this report back pretty soon. There was an amendment to cut it to 30 days from 90 days. So we hope to have a report back from city planning about a development incentive programs to prioritize 100% affordable housing projects in high opportunity areas, or for creating affordable housing overlay zones in the city of LA. And then lastly, I'd say I also see the short-term motion on your agenda. So we see the additional elements. I'll stick around. I'll try and stick around for that one as well to listen in. And okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate that. Jared Thompson.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Matt covered most of my items, so just one thing to let everybody keep their eye out for. Sunday, November 7th is the LA Marathon, so traffic will be very backed up on the west side. If you're planning on going to the west side for brunch on Sunday, maybe avoid that, or go watch or go run in it. Maybe some of you are. So that's really all I have. I hope if everyone's having a good night.
Thank you. Rachel Sherrill.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Rachel Sherrill, and I am the new East Side Field Deputy for Supervisor Kuehl. I've been with the Office of Supervisor Kuehl for a little over 2 years now, and I'm excited for the opportunity to represent the supervisor in East Side communities. I've sent a written copy of tonight's update to the chair to ensure that you all have the information as well as my contact information. I do have a brief update on behalf of the board. At this week's meeting, the board passed multiple motions aimed at continuing to create a a more inclusive LA County. The board requested a 90-day report back from multiple departments, asking them to identify current gaps and ways the county can better support immigrants and undocumented folks currently experiencing homelessness. There were multiple motions asking healthcare affiliated departments such as Department of Mental Health and Department of Health Services to identify current vacancies and develop plans to not only fill those vacancies, but ramp up hiring in general. The board also appropriated $1.5 million for the Small Business Legal Aid Program, which will provide legal assistance for small businesses who are experiencing issues with their landlord, and this will be available countywide. Lastly, ticket prices for the 2022 Hollywood Bowl season have been set. While there will be some price increases for the most expensive tiers, the bottom 3 tiers will see no increase, and in some instances, a decrease in price, helping to ensure the bowl remains a county treasure available to all residents. In COVID-19 news, both the city and county have passed vaccination requirements. The county is very grateful to our city partners who have introduced a very robust degree. I will let my city colleagues go over that in more detail, but I do want to highlight that the county has also implemented vaccine requirements for areas outside of the city of Los Angeles. If you have any questions or would like clarification, please let me know. And lastly, as you all know, there have been some staffing changes within our office. We are still working to determine what attendance at neighborhood councils will look like, but I want everyone to know that I will be providing written updates to the board monthly, and I'm more than happy to make myself available whenever there is a county-related item the board wishes to discuss. As always, please do not hesitate to let me know if you have any questions or if I can be of any further service.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that update. Next, we have Senior Lead Officer Braxton Tatum. Go ahead.
All right. How's it going, everyone? My name is Braxton Tatum. I'm the new acting Senior Lead Officer for LAPD Hollywood's 6A31 basic car. Basically, my car goes all the way out to the area of Hillcrest and Sunset, all the way up to Mulholland, Edwin, Skyline area, and basically trails Mulholland all the way down to the 101. If you guys need anything of me, my email, I can give that out, and my phone number, I can also give that out. Feel free to reach out to me at any point, and I'm excited to work with you guys. Whatever you guys need, I will do my best to help you guys out.
Thank you. Octaviano Rios, did you want to say anything from Yep, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Octaviano. If I can have 2 minutes.
Please.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Octaviano Rios. I'm with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Just real quick here, there's 2 opportunities for optional trainings. One's scheduled for tomorrow. It's the Core Institute Module 2. Tomorrow at 6:30, you can RSVP through a link provided through your NC's profiles, excuse me. The topics to be covered: NC bylaws, hosting virtual public meetings, public comment period, and managing meeting disruptions. The other one doesn't have, the next optional training doesn't have an RSVP link yet. It's Core Institute Module 3, but the topics will include drafting agendas, what community impact statements are, and the legislative process, and presenting public testimony, as well as social media tools and policies. That's Module 3, and that's scheduled for November 30th at 6:30. I did want to highlight a required training that's due November 30th, so next month, titled Anti-Bias Learning for Employees, and also known as ABLE, A-B-L-E. And that is a mandatory training for for neighborhood council board members to help promote equity and inclusion in the neighborhood council system. The 2016 Code of Conduct Policy proposed amendments, that's still a process that's open for feedback. And the next information session on those proposed amendments will be presented Saturday, November 6th from 1 to 3. So hopefully that's more convenient for folks on a weekend. Again, that's the draft proposed amendments to the 2016 Code of Conduct Policy, and that's an information session. The in 2 days, the city clerk's office has a deadline if you're interested in applying to participate in the city clerk's neighborhood council elections work group. They're looking for folks that are interested to work with them on a regular basis. They haven't scheduled how frequently during the year that you should make yourself available, but we are assuming that they're going to be working with those that finally do apply and what their availability is. So if the schedule doesn't work for you, don't feel pressured to stay in the working group. But if you are interested in the topic, definitely submit your application by the 29th at the very least, and then go from there. And it's on the 29th at 5 p.m. So if you're looking for the application, let me know. Again, that's in the NC profiles. And I believe I mentioned this last time. We made a mistake in the bylaw amendments deadline. We said it was April 15th of next year. It's actually April 1st for your proposed bylaw amendment submission along with your application. And last but not least, I know the holidays are fast approaching, including the celebration of Halloween this Sunday. I just want to wish everybody happy holiday preparations and celebrations. And thank you so much for all the hard work you do as volunteers. Sometimes a lot of us forget in the community that you're all volunteers, spending a lot of time, a lot of hours of your personal time preparing for your meetings and providing leadership for your community and advocating for your needs to City Hall. So thank you all very much for all the time and dedication that you put in. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we can move on to the next items here. Just a second here. So next report item is item number 8, which is the President's report. Mr. Rios just hit a couple of things that I was going to say. One, we do have this new training, anti-bias training. You have to do it. So time to dust off your Cornerstone login and get that done. Also, code of conduct, financial training, ethics training, planning 101. You do need to do these if you're out of date or you won't be able to vote. And when we get to votes where they're going to matter here this evening, I think we have a person, at least one, who isn't quite done yet. So I'll note that at the time. There's also Robert's Rules of Order training on the website. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about how to go about doing things under Robert's rules and some of the language to use, when to use it, how to use it, what the principles are. I might come back to that at good of the order if we want to have some time to chat about that. But it's something that's important, especially as we get bigger and have a lot of material to go through. I just want to remind everybody that there is a special meeting of this board next Wednesday, starting at 6:30, a half hour earlier, with the leadership of Metro. And it's dedicated 2.5 hours exclusively to hear from Metro, get public comment, and ask questions about the Sepulveda Pass Transit Corridor. An agenda has gone out, emails gone out, we'll get a blast out. Please invite everybody who's interested in and has questions to ask, wants information, wants to even see if the Metro folks have answers to questions or not. That's a full open public meeting next Wednesday at 6:30 with some very senior folks and planners in their organization. I mentioned redistricting here. I'll defer that because we did put an item on the agenda. That brings us to item 9, Vice President Operations, Robin Greenberg. Do you have any reports?
I'll just mention again that we have a couple of meetings coming up. As you've already mentioned, LADBS, it's November 3rd. You've mentioned the Metro meeting on November 3rd, and November 4th, meeting on home sharing, and November 11th, the Executive Committee meeting.
Thank you. Vice President Legislative Affairs, Jamie Hall. Do you have a report?
Last night we did, we had a special meeting of the Planning and Land Use Committee where I gave a presentation on the implementation of SB 9 in the hillsides. And so that PowerPoint presentation I believe it's going to be made available on the website. And I believe it's, in addition, the video, my presentation, if you want to hear me speak, it's on our YouTube page. there is going to be, there was a motion that was passed out of the committee. We're going to discuss that here tonight. So that's like a big legislative issue that we're going to be dealing with for the remainder of this year and for, unfortunately, many years to come. And the only other thing I will point out in terms of legislative actions is that the Hollywood Community Plan update has not been scheduled for a hearing yet before the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. It obviously will impact a lot of our neighborhood council, and there's some work that we need to be doing in terms of ensuring that the mitigation measures for biological resources are enhanced. And so that's an ongoing effort, nothing to report, but it's something that I'm working on personally, and I'll report back when I know more.
Thank you. Secretary Nikki Miner, do you have any reports?
No, all is rather quiet right now. Nothing to report.
Thank you. Treasurer Vadim Levatman, you have the MER?
Nothing new to report. The only thing I want to do is move to approve September's expense report.
Thank you. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion of the September monthly expenditure report? Any objection to calling the question? Okay, hearing none. Is it a roll call vote? I'm going to call everybody I think is here. And Stephen Weinberg, I'm not going to call you because you've got one training left to do. And we want to make sure we're following the rules here. And Bobby, I don't think you've gotten the training yet, so we're going to not take your vote on this either. So, Bayless.
Yes.
Yes. Garfield.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Hall. Hall.
Muted.
Darn mute, yes.
Holmes.
Yes.
Kennedy.
Yes.
Levatman.
Yes.
Passing Lowe's.
Yes, if you notice Caden is here now also.
Yes, sir, I got it.
Thank
Was
you.
that a yes?
Yes.
Mann.
Yes.
And we'll take Caden.
Yes.
Thank you. Minor.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Sandler.
Yes.
Schlesinger.
Yes.
Sroloff.
Yes.
Steele.
Yes.
Stoica.
Yes.
Tanner.
I haven't completed the training yet.
Ah, you snuck by me. Thank you. Wayne.
Yes.
Wimbish is not present. Okay, Cobb.
Yes.
And Bobby is not. Perfect. So the motion passes. I will add up the number of yeses later on. Thank you. The next item is item 13, which is report of the Planning and Land Use Committee. If you have a general report, Bob, or then we'll move on to 14.
Not really.
Okay,
Move on.
so let's move right ahead on to item number 14. So item number 14 is 1826 Chrysler Way, which is case number ZA 2020-7359 ZAA-ZAD. It's pursuant to Los Angeles Municipal Code 1224X28 and 1228, a zoning administrator's determination / zoning administrator's adjustment for a new 1,660 square foot single family dwelling with an attached 2-car garage on an existing vacant lot. The applicant is Takeshi Furukawa, representative is Simon Story. The motion that was approved out of the Planning and Land Use Committee, those of you who remember that we heard this a month ago, sent it back to Planning and Land Use, they heard it again. It's now come back with the recommendation to write a letter to the zoning administrator stating that the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council recommends denial of this project on the grounds that it's not exempt from CEQA due to the cumulative impacts of the project, especially the 4 homes adjacent to the project, and that there are public safety and health impacts associated with the project that have not been analyzed, and that the adjustment for additional square footage should not be granted because the requirements for findings cannot be made. Chair Schlesinger, do you wish to make that motion?
I'll move.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Yes.
Yep. And so what we're going to do is we have a second. It comes from committee, so we know there's desire to hear it. What we'll do first is hear from the applicant, and then we'll hear public comment, and then we'll come back to the board for conversation. Heather, do you have a point of
I'm
inquiry?
recusing myself, so I'm going to pop off. And if somebody
Okay.
can text me to pop back on. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so members of the public, if you'd like to testify on this item, you'll be next. First up, we'll hear from the applicant. Simon Story, I believe, represents the applicant. Your talking is permitted if you want to go ahead and say a few words here.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Well, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity once again to talk about this project. We've been back many times to talk to you on it. And as you mentioned, this is our second time presenting to the full board. And obviously we've been to quite a few planning and land use meetings. So as you said, the last time we saw you was a few months ago, and the decision was made to send us back to planning and land use. The reason at the time to send us back was because of a report presented by a representative of the neighbors who live on Marmot Drive. This report, which was put together by a civil engineer, raised various concerns. One of those concerns was slope stability, and I'll talk about that in a second. However, the biggest issue with this report actually was the report does not specifically relate to our lot. This report was focused only on 4 neighboring lots to our west. So the report didn't even mention 1826 at all. So actually, I spoke to the author of this report by phone just yesterday. Jim Fall is the civil engineer who was hired to study these 4 lots. And he affirmed that since he did not study our lot at all for the purpose of that report, obviously this report is not relevant to us at all. However, at the Planning and Land Use Committee, I still reiterated that our soils report actually does demonstrate that our slope stability far exceeds city standards. And this, of course, is detailed in the report that has been submitted to the grading department, and it's been approved by the grading department. So while we're on the subject of reports, I also just wanted to remind you of all the environmental studies that we have completed so far. I'm not sure that your board actually has a complete list of these environmental studies. So I want to go on record now and let you know what we've done so far. This is not a complete list, but these studies that have been done so far include a geotechnical and soils report, which has been submitted to grading and approved, a tree report, which has been submitted to urban forestry, a biological assessment report. We have provided a site drainage plan. We have provided a sewer plan and profile. We have provided a street plan and profile. We have provided hydrological reports. We have completed a traffic study, which has been reviewed and approved by DOT. We have completed an air quality study. We have completed a cultural resources study, a greenhouse gas emissions, and also a noise study. Our biologist has also assessed wetlands, wildlife corridors, and mountain lion habitats. And lastly, cumulative impacts have been analyzed for the above items. All of these reports have been submitted to the lead agency. The lead agency in this case, as you know, is the Department of City Planning. City Planning has created an environmental case for this project, which is accessible to the public on ZMIS. So I thought it was important to just remind the board of these studies. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about environmental impacts. I think a lot of misinformation, in fact, has been circulating. So I just wanted to clear that up once and for all. I'm keeping it pretty brief today, so that's all I have to say. And I'll be around for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Story. So now we will move to public comment on this item. If there are any members of the public who wish to comment, you can raise your hand in the Zoom function, or *9 if you've connected on the telephone. So we'll start with
John Pikus.
Is it John? John Pikus?
Yeah, hi there.
Go ahead. We've got 5 hands up, so maybe keep it to a minute, minute and a half, something like that.
Sure, I'll keep it very brief. I spoke a few weeks ago to this panel about this. So I'm just a neighbor, a longtime resident on Kirkwood, a block away or so from Grandview, where this proposed development would be just down the hill from. And, I'm concerned about lack of access for emergency vehicles, such as large, fire engines. If there were to be an emergency, if there's this sort of construction, I don't feel it would be safe for the neighborhood. It's already very congested. Just wanted to remind everyone of, the 1979, I didn't quite live here yet, but I've only lived here for 20 years. But in 1979, there was a terrible fire on Grandview, some 30 plus houses burned, and we certainly don't want that to happen again. And anytime there's talk of construction of a house, especially on Chrysler Way, which is a paper street, this portion of Chrysler Way, it's, just a very difficult, steep graded hill to build on. So that's it. Just wanted to voice my concern. I don't think it's a safe idea to construct there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, we have a person who's identified as Brooke.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you to the board for taking our safety and quality of life seriously and listening to our concerns. I've grown up here my entire life. Most of my life I've lived here, and this project, I would say, is probably the single biggest threat to our safety and way of life. First off, the noise. You can hear really loud the way the canyon, the steepness of the canyon, you can hear a single truck so loudly. They're doing street work. The noise would be absolutely overpowering. The parking from any workers or additional traffic that would be brought in is already just horrible. I've had to park a quarter mile away late at night and even during the day, and workers would take our parking. But most concerning is, aside from the steep grade there, I don't care how much fencing you put up. My parents are living below a fenced building site, and they've put every kind of barrier up, and boulders are still flying at their doors. My main concern, though, is that Grandview is a one-lane street, basically, and it has sharp corners. There is no room to back up and turn around, and cars get backed up each way.
Thank you. Can you wrap up?
Yes. Any kind of building truck here, and especially on such a steep road, would be a massive hazard. And I implore you to please take this seriously, and our hope lies in you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Noreen McMillan.
Yes, thank you. I've lived on Grandview for 35 years this month. I vehemently oppose this project on the basis that it is detrimental to the neighborhood's safety. And when I say that, I include Marmont, which is below the project. If you are inclined to approve this project, I implore you to come to see the site on Grandview Drive before you make a final vote. Unless you have been on Grandview, you do not know why we are so concerned. Emergency vehicles have been blocked during other projects, specifically 8401 Grandview, which was built in 2007. I live at 8373, and my neighbor across the street at 8370 had a medical emergency. Thankfully, it was not a life-threatening emergency. The ambulance came up to 8401, and because the road was blocked, they had to turn around. And again, unless you've seen our neighborhood, you don't understand that they had to turn around, go back down Grandview, a one-lane road, go down Kirkwood, and then come back up in the other direction on Yucca Trail. It is a disaster waiting to happen. Please, please, please take our safety into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Rob M.
Hi, thanks for, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I live on Briar with my husband, Robert, who is also on the call. But we've lived here for about 15 years now. And I just like to reiterate that the infrastructure for the neighborhood is just it's so difficult to do this kind of building. It's not like, you know, a small project. This is, you know, going to include adding roads that, and we have to constantly pull over. And again, I like to, you know, echo what the last speaker said about you should come to the neighborhood and just see how the infrastructure is just really can't support this kind of a project. So thank you. Please take that into consideration.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have Billy Brown.
Hello, board members. Thank you for your volunteer service. It's appreciated. As my neighbors have spoken, I too live on Grandview and have been here since 2012. This project is an egregious affront to the safety of all residents and all tax-paying homeowners. Taking into consideration the recent power outage, what makes us consider that one more property draining the power system and the failing infrastructure is the right move? Consider the one-way traffic on Grandview Drive. Consider the fact that heavy earth-moving equipment can weigh anywhere from 14,000 to 90,000 pounds. Staging is non-existent, regardless what Mr. Simon would convince you otherwise. The entire area, Kirkwood Bowl and Marmont down below, is subject to fire hazards and fire risks, emergency vehicle access. We now have Amazon trucks with UPS construction vehicles, pool cleaning equipment all day long. I implore you to come and see for yourself the disaster that the city has caused by allowing permutation of projects that are not being addressed before the city infrastructure, which is absolutely deplorable right now. So I ask you to follow the motion and demand this project meet CEQA and file a secret report in EIR and tell the ZA that this project should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Mills.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, there have been a lot of different proposed buildings and stuff in this area. I think this one does seem to be maybe the worst bunch of them for all the reasons that people are saying. The builder was saying something about the various complaints had to do with the 4 lots, but not with his. But aren't they next to each other? And wouldn't they all have the same issues? Maybe that's something he can say. I noticed he also said that the traffic study is being reviewed and approved by
Department of Transportation. I'm wondering how he would know that it's being approved. But basically, the other thing is that we already have something happening on Mannix Drive, which is another street up here, which is getting a lot of backing up and cars honking while the machines are working, and of course the drivers are getting annoyed, but it also makes the project go on longer because they keep getting interrupted. They have to keep moving their machines. Mannix is wider and clearer and more able to move around on than Grandview, though. Grandview is very narrow, especially in certain places.
Thank you. Can you wrap up?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Also, it's the highest risk fire area in this city. Apparently, it was deemed that recently. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Mathena.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, this is Brian Mathena. I live on Briar Drive next door to Rob Marone, who spoke previously. As a resident of the community, I continue to object to this project on grounds of the safety concerns for the Kirkwood Bowl community at large, and especially the residents of Grandview and Yucca Trail. Anyone who lives in this community or has been to this community knows the aging and delicate infrastructure of much of Laurel Canyon, especially the Kirkwood Bowl and specifically Grandview Drive and the roads required to access the proposed site. This is a community where a single fallen tree or power pole can and has left over 1,500 homes without power for multiple days. So the impact of thousands and thousands of pounds of construction equipment and the associated construction vehicle traffic alone will have a continued significant negative impact on the quality of the infrastructure in the community. Beyond that, moving this project forward completely ignores the significant safety implications on the community, including access by emergency vehicles in a high-risk fire zone made up of overly narrow single-lane roads. Also, as mentioned in the Planning and Land Use Committee meeting, residents below the site who are at significantly higher safety risk from debris and falling equipment have spoken that the developer had not previously or proactively reached out to the impacted residents as of that meeting, which I believe speaks to the lack of interest on the part of that developer in the interest of the community impact and safety. So I asked the neighborhood council to adopt the motion by the committee.
Thank you. Next we have Brian Riley.
Thank you for having me. Brian Riley from Yucca Trail, which some people mentioned, so below Grandview. I can tell you this is an insane idea to try to do this. And even if on paper, as the gentleman said, he's got all of these different reviews and reports and things that have been done, just because it can be done doesn't mean it should be done. It's going to diminish the quality of life for people all in the neighborhood. The fire danger is definitely probably the thing that most people are concerned about, especially on a day like today, and then what tomorrow will be like. Getting vehicles through, there's zero parking here as on a good day. Dare I say, where are they going to even stage for this project? You can take a look at what's going on at Gould and try to get through there on a regular day. So there's 3 of us in our household that are of voting age. All 3 of us say no. There's many homes for sale right now if you drive around the weekend. So unless these developers are talking about putting in some beautiful affordable housing in that area, I say oppose it.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands raised. Is there any other members of the public who'd like to speak now before we close the public hearing? Okay, next is Anne Simonera. Go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. I was present at the September meeting when this project came up. I live approximately 300 feet away from where ground zero would take place on a home that sits, there's no frontage. The home was built in '67. And literally when a fire truck drives by, I can literally shake the person's hand. I can't walk out into the street. So that's how narrow. It's even narrower than the spot where this, this proposed construction would take place. So for me, it's also really public safety for me. I almost perished in a fire when I was a child. And luckily, you know, the fire persons came and it was all taken care of. But as soon as I moved up to here, once you realize you're in a different ecosystem kind of thing, and there's a 1-lane road, that's always in the back of my mind. And the other thing is the project may have, it's controlled or it's designed to go through all these steps, but you really can't control something, when an accident or someone's going to need help, right? And it's truly a one-lane path that was paved over. So it gets routinely blocked. Box trucks that are moving get stuck because the grade is so steep. We're blocked off and basically choked. And we just have to wait until a vehicle comes and tows it out, whatever. So
wrap up?
I'm against this project.
Thank you. Okay. So we, unless we see any more hands, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this and come back to the board. Mr. Schlesinger, you'd like to be recognized?
Yes, I would. When you and I talked before, and I'm going to jump to the next agenda, but I want to tie them together if it's possible. 1800, 1806, 1812, and 1818 Chrysler Way. They had an environmental impact report done in 2015. Considering that plus 1826 Chrysler Way, I think that an EIR is necessary to be done again for those 4 properties. And I think the California Environmental Quality Act should look at the impact of 5 homes being built, not 1 and not 4.
So we'll take that as a testimony in favor of the motion.
That's a testimony in favor of the motion.
from you. Great. Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to?
I don't think they can be separated at this point. 1826 is the same side of the street and maybe 1 or 2 homes away from 1818, which is the highest number of the 4. But you're talking about 5 homes on a substandard street. And I think an EIR needs to be done again on both of them, considering all 5.
Okay. So, so just as a reminder here, we'd like to go back and forth if someone wants to speak against the motion. Okay.
I see David trying to speak.
Yeah, go ahead and raise your hand.
It looks like David's trying to speak, but he's muted.
Yeah.
David, you're muted.
To speak against the motion.
Go ahead. He's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
You were saying?
Yes. Did you want to speak against the motion?
Oh, yes. No, I'm against approving.
You're against, okay, so you support the motion, which is
Yes.
to deny to the project. Okay, so then knowing that, let's move quickly through the hands that are raised. Kathy Wayne, go ahead.
Hi, are we addressing the four additional properties now?
No, that's a second, that's another item.
Okay,
So
I will wait
get to
then.
that after this. Okay.
I will wait. Thank you.
Mr. Weinberg, go ahead.
Yeah, I know I can't vote on this, but can I still comment, Travis?
Absolutely.
Okay. As I mentioned at the last meeting when this came up, I wanted to get boots on the ground and my eyes on the site. And so I did exactly that. I went out, I made an appointment with the homeowners in the area, and I completely walked the site. I walked, let's see, all along Grandview where this proposed development is. I saw the area where the paper street would be put in. I looked at the widths of the streets, and I drove the entire neighborhood. Now, this neighborhood is characterized by very narrow streets, but in my view and my experience of driving through, Grandview seemed to be the most solid and wide street that I could see. And to the extent that the residents are complaining about lack of access for emergency vehicles, well, the entire area is like that. So I wouldn't put too much stock in that. My bottom line is I think this first development would open the door for the rest of them, the other 4, and I'm completely against the other 4 on the paper street. And so with that, I would support the motion if I could vote.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Yeah, just a couple of things that Mr. Schlesinger mentioned, just kind of clarifying things. 1826 Chrysler is literally next to 1818 Chrysler.
No,
they are adjacent to each other. So we're talking about 5 homes on 5 contiguous lots that would be built at the same time. And also that other 4-home project, I know we're not discussing that one, but it is, they did an M&D, which is not an EIR. And they did not do that full level analysis. They did an M&D, a mitigated negative declaration, and discovered that there were a whole host of potentially significant environmental impacts. And so under these circumstances, and remember the applicant's representative here kept telling us in all the hearings that we went through, he told us that, you know, that 4-home project, it's apparently died. It's not coming back. It's been suspended. And lo and behold, voila, all of the public hearing notices just show up as if everything that we were saying about this being possible, that it's in the pipeline, that those people had applied first, it all came to fruition. So this is the perfect example of cumulative impacts that have to be analyzed under CEQA in a single environmental impact report. And so I support the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Levotman?
When this came before us last month, residents, neighbors raised concern about the safety. I haven't heard anything today from the developer that actually fixed the issue or put the residents at ease. As the chair of the security committee of the DSPNA, I owe duty to residents to vote against this project.
Thank you. Is there a desire to discuss more or a willingness to call the question?
Call for the question.
Call for the question. Is there any objection to calling the question?
No.
Except for that helicopter that's running over top of me right now. Hearing none, I think we're going to take Mr. Hall's hand and put it down. We will call for the question. Let's go ahead and let's just do a roll call on this just so we're sure. So the motion is whether to write a letter that recommends denial of this project on the grounds it's not exempt from CEQA due to cumulative impacts of the project, especially the 4 homes adjacent to the project, and that there are public safety and health impacts associated with the project that have not been analyzed, and that the adjustment for additional square footage should not be granted because the requirements for findings cannot be made. So if you vote yes, that means you're against the project. If you vote no, it means you don't want us to take that position. Okay, is that clear with everybody?
Good.
Thank you. So Brandes.
Yes.
Bayless.
Yes.
Garfield.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Holmes.
Aye.
We'll come back to you. Caden.
Yes.
Kennedy.
Yes.
Levotman.
Yes.
I'm abstaining. Lowe's.
Yes.
Mann.
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Palmer.
Yes.
Roy. Oh, recused. That's right. Sorry. Brain. Sandler.
Yes.
Schlesinger.
I'll abstain.
Stroloff.
Yes.
Steele.
Yes.
Stoica.
Yes.
Tanner.
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes.
Cobb.
Yes.
And Quan, since you're actually within the grace period for our rules, go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you. So the next item is 1800, 1806, 1812, and 1818 North Chrysler Way. There's a bunch of case numbers. I'm not going to read them right now. They're in the agenda. The motion, and these were the adjacent properties that were being discussed in the previous item. The motion is to draft a letter to the zoning administrator requesting these projects be denied due to the inadequacy of the environmental review and inability to make required findings in light of project-specific and cumulative impacts. Is the applicant here? The representative is Erica Iverson from Rosenheim and Associates, or the owner, Robert Anderson, CAC Development. If you are present, please go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to speak to this item.
I don't see those names.
Okay. So next we would take public comment on this. So this is item 15, the 4 houses on North Chrysler Way. Are there any members of the public who want to testify on this item? We'll start with, and if you're going to repeat things, it's okay to just say what I said before. We'll start with Mr. Brian Riley.
Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate you also voting to deny that or to say that you oppose it. So again, this is a crazy project. The people on Grandview are going to suffer. It's just unnecessary as well. If there was a good reason to build these homes, I'd be all for it. But right now, it's a really bad idea. So also oppose these as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Noreen McMillan.
Same as I said before. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on. Rob M.
Hey, don't bite her.
No, you picked Brian Riley again. You can go ahead and pick somebody else.
Yeah, Rob M. Go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Again, I'd like to just reiterate what I said before. The impact to safety and infrastructure is tremendous to the neighborhood. And, you know, I'm for proper density, but this is just a ridiculous project. So thank you.
Thank you. Jim Mills.
Yes, hi. I wanted to say the same as before. I just wanted to add one thing that Stephen Weinberg mentioned. I'm glad he came up. Thank you for coming up. I think the point about Grandview is that it is have some parts of it that are well structured, but it's a very long street and it's still very narrow with nowhere to turn around. So if there is a backup, it takes a long distance to find out. So you may have more cars in the backup, because it's not just like you can't just see the distance of the street. So you may end up with 10 cars in a backup honking their horns. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Brian Mathena.
Yes, I continue to reiterate the same points that I made before.
Thank you, sir. Anna Simonera.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to reiterate what I said previously, and just one other point I would like to bring up. To factor in human error in driving these large construction trucks, cement trucks. I have, I've seen a large dump truck on the Bird Street. The axle broke and smashed right into a house, a huge, huge truck. So this is another thing that's always on the back of my mind as well. So just wanted to bring that up for consideration.
Thank you. Brian Mathena.
I'm sorry, there might be two Brian M's. I spoke when you called for Brian M.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let's see, Billy Brown.
Okay, thank you, council members again. Let's also consider the cumulative impact reports, not just in the 4 homes, but when this was first brought to our attention, we recognized a roughly 30 caissons in a 200-foot road with no turnaround that access the 4 homes. That type of development is absolutely egregious and unsustainable in the current conditions, no matter the width of the substandard hillside roads that are already existent and the infrastructure that has not been addressed by LA City or LA County. Furthermore, simply driving, as many have said, yes, this part of Grandview is wider in some areas, but you still have to reverse, and you still have to back up and look for room. And more homes create more traffic, more Uber drivers, more Lyft drivers, and more Airbnb and VRBO. So I support the motion and thank you for your volunteer stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I missed anyone, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, thank you. We'll close the public comment on it.
Travis, this is Bobby Klein. I have just one comment to the group. Having been a resident of Laurel Canyon for 31 years, I have seen all kind of traffic situation and situation. I just want to remind everyone that in 2003, Grandview, which leads to Coldcrest, the all same narrow road, Coldcrest actually collapsed in 2003, and the street was closed for 18 months. And as a result, Grandview to Coldcrest, which is one of the fire safety exit, emergency exit route for the COVID bowl, that was our service for 18 months due to excessive traffic to the construction damage to the road. So it's not just backing up and safety. We talk about the infrastructure itself is really, really poor shape, and we have to think about that as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone like to move the motion per the printed agenda?
I move.
I have a point of order.
Please.
If we vote on the 4 projects separately, can we do something subsequent to that or after that to tie the 2 of them together regarding a CEQA analysis?
Well, certainly this item, which says to draft a letter, which means we're going to delegate to someone, you and I suspect, to draft such a letter. We can mention in that letter the connection to the other item, and that's the core of the cumulative impacts argument here. So yes, we can, and I don't think we need to even change the motion to do that.
Okay, thank you.
So I heard it's moved by Wayne. There's a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So speaking, we've already had Mr. Kwan speaking for the motion. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? I see Kathy Wayne's hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, yes. I want to reiterate Bobby's comment, as well as add on to the fact that on Grandview, there are consistently water main breaks, and there have been dozens of those in the past 15 to 20 years. It is extremely a narrow street. The area at the far end goes into Yucca Trail, which is even a narrower street and a very sharp turn to get on it. And also these 4 homes were submitted to us a couple of years ago. They haven't done anything that was discussed at that point to correct, outline, develop a plan. They haven't submitted to the city or to us anything. I think it's time we are they talking about us now?
Take a very strong stand. So I am supporting the motion that I've
Thank you that you've made. So we'll take Nikki Miner, then Stephen Weinberg.
Hi. I've been up there and driving a regular sedan. I've driven in the hills my whole life. So driving in the hills and narrow roads is nothing that's scary or new to me. I got to tell you, it's just amazing to think at the distance that technology has come to go over these once upon a time delicate roads that probably were no more than horse trails, and all of a sudden here we are. They want to practically mow the neighborhood down. I mean, common sense tells you to be against these projects. We don't even, I mean, the average person to look at that would see that no, it's gone too far. We can't let this happen, and we shouldn't let this happen. We have to leave these communities be as they are, with if there are any just additions to houses, not on precipices. These lots are like narrow trails and then a steep precipice right below. There's no lot size, there's no staging places. Who would have thought, even 20, 30 years ago, looking at the side of a mountain, that someone would build a huge house on the horse trail part and have the caissons go into the mountain?
Thank you.
No, it's wrong. It's got to stop now. And it's good to hear that these 5 houses or 5 lots are going to be in the same category, and we can be vehemently against them. Thank you.
Mr. Weinberg?
Yeah, I just want to say something real quick. I looked at the diagrams and some of the renderings and things for these 4 houses, and I have to tell you, it's impossible to get the scope and the nature of the nightmare that this would cause if those houses went in until you see it for yourself where they would go. They're basically hanging on the side of a cliff below Grandview, and to build a road into that area and build these 4 houses it's an absolute no-brainer. It should never.
Is there any objection to calling the question at this point? Does someone want to?
Yeah, call the question.
Yeah, thank you. So any objection to that?
None.
Okay, so hearing no objection, I didn't hear anybody testifying or arguing against the motion. Is there anyone who'd like to record anything other than a yes vote on this motion? Okay, so hearing none, this will be adopted unanimously of those here and eligible to vote. Next item is item 16, which is implementation of SB 9 in hillside areas. As we know, there was a presentation last month that Jamie Hall mentioned earlier in this meeting to write, and the motion is, if someone would like to make it, to write a letter and file a CIS regarding implementation of SB 9 within the city of Los Angeles, with particular attention to compliance with provisions to protect public safety and the environment. There was an attachment that was circulated. Is there anyone who'd like to make that motion?
I'll move. Yeah, I'll
Mr.
second.
Schlesinger? Mr. Schlesinger and
I'll
Mr.
second.
Jacob. Thank you. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on the motion regarding SB 9? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead. Is anyone who'd like to speak in favor of the motion or ask a question from the board?
Yes, I would.
Go ahead, Mr. Lowe's.
As a result of Jamie's presentation last night, pardon me, it seems that we might be missing an opportunity to encourage the city to resist applying SB 9 within the city on grounds to be determined by the city attorney. I'd like to offer a suggestion that we initiate such a proposal and an amendment to what the current motion is, that there be a letter from this board to the city attorney and indeed to our councilman, that we object to the application of SB 9 to the hillside areas in particular.
Just a blanket objection. So that's a motion to amend the motion, which is attachment C on the agenda. So we have a motion from Don. Is there someone who wants to second Don's motion?
I'll second it.
Okay,
we have a
Andre.
second. We have a
Andre's a
second.
second.
Yes, we have a second. So discussion regarding that. I'd be interested in hearing from Jamie.
I apologize. My I dropped off for a second. What's going on? I had to just join back in.
Yeah. So Don has made a motion to amend the motion that you wrote to add in that they would write a letter to the city attorney that we object to the application of SB 9 to hillside areas, as I understand it, across the board.
Yes.
That's a city.
That the city object to implementation of SB 9 in hillside areas. And Don, I didn't understand on what specific grounds would you make that argument?
Grounds to be determined by the city, by the city attorney.
Well, we can't just say we don't like the law. We got to come up with some reason.
Pardon me, Jamie.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't think we can just say, write a letter. That sounds like a, we can't say come up with a reason for doing it. I think we owe it to explain or provide a hint to the city attorney why we think he can take that position.
Yeah, he can take that position under the 10th Amendment for our benefit.
Well, that's just really not the purpose of what this motion was to be about. It was about to get our, here's an idea of how to maybe do both of these things. So the motion was intended to influence what this implementation memo looks like and analyzes. It was like a very kind of focused thing that we're trying to do. The letter that we could draft could elaborate on some of those things, but it could also ask the city attorney to analyze the constant. If you want to go broader, you get to analyze the legality of the law. I think that's really what you're getting at. And there are municipalities out there that are launching a challenge to SB 9. And that was not the intent of my motion. It was really hyper focused on some of these implementation memos. I would support what you're wanting to do. I just don't know if we should marry it with the motion.
So
I accept your suggestion, Jamie. I think we have an opportunity to be an advocate for ourselves here, and we should be damn well doing it. And we just don't take a position for any aggressive litigation, and I think it's time this board did it.
What we could do separate letters or something. I mean, I'm open to total suggestion here. We could do like, this is our motion, which is intended to sort of be like a script for our council members to,
So I think Jamie's motion here is about implementation. And if I can suggest a way forward here, I'm looking at the agenda and how we notice this item. I think, Don, if you would be willing to withdraw your amending motion, you could make a motion after we discuss and vote on this one that would be to do something else under this same general topic, which would be the motion that you've just made, and make that as a separate motion once we've disposed of the current motion on the floor.
I understand the distinction that Jamie is making, but it seems to me that in connection with what he's very nicely prepared, that we could have an amendment to include a separate letter so we don't have to go through this again and wait around to make some further determination.
I don't think he's saying you have to wait around. He's literally saying tonight. Yeah.
So Don, I'm literally suggesting to you, if you withdraw this motion, your amending motion, we vote on Jamie's motion, and then we open the floor under this same agenda item in whatever it is, 5 minutes, and you make another motion, a straight up motion about how we proceed on a second letter.
Thank you. I believe we adequately noticed the.
I believe we have as well, and the aggrieved party here would be the city. So I don't think that that's an issue. So
thank you.
Would you withdraw your amending motion?
Yes, I do, and anybody else who seconded it.
That's fine. Okay, so the motion's been withdrawn. The amending motion has been withdrawn. Is anyone else who'd like to speak on the main motion about the implementation of the law that's been drafted and circulated? Okay.
My only question is, there's going to be a lot of follow-up once we do this. Is our board kind of off? Do we some of our executive officers here, are we authorized to kind of continue to work with our council members and their staff to follow up on our motion?
Absolutely. Once we've made it and adopted it as a position, there's no problem following up on it ad nauseum. We did this during the redistricting process. We took the position of the board and we reiterated it over and over again.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, Miniman, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to revisit something that what Don just said in putting it together with the letter that Jamie wrote, and it's really just kind of more like almost just adding one line, which is it's kind of just basically what I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jamie, tell me yes or no. I mean, you basically want to tell them hands off of the mountains, but saying, but here's the reason why. Here are the environmental reasons why, because you started off by saying that the Santa Monica Mountains are a very special place. And then you kind of talk about SB 9 and some specific reasons that apply to the environmental issues of the Santa Monica Mountains. And then, so if maybe there was a way of somewhere in your first paragraph after you talk about the Santa Monica Mountains, and then before you still go into the specifics, you end maybe the first paragraph saying based on what I mentioned below or at the end, we believe that SB 9 should not apply to the Santa Monica Mountains.
I didn't do that because I think that I'm trying to be very kind of legally correct. And I don't think I could actually take that position. I think that there might be a parcel in the mountains that would be eligible. So I'm trying to be correct.
So you think then that in this application, you think that SB 9 then will only be here and there within the mountains, so it's not all of the Santa Monica?
No, I think it's most of the Santa Monica Mountains. I think it's the overwhelming majority. But remember, the mountain zone actually goes all the way down to Ventura Boulevard and to Hollywood Boulevard. So there's going to be little fringe lots that don't have any of these protected species. And I think, they might be eligible. So I'm trying to be intellectually honest.
Okay. All right. So that explains it. Okay. So that's why you wanted to be more specific in the application then. Yeah.
And I didn't want this to be a political statement necessarily. I wanted it to really be like, hey, staff, look at this. The legislature says it doesn't apply to these things. You need to think about how you're going to implement this. So that was what my thought process was.
Okay.
Mr. Cobb.
I thought the letter was great, Jamie. I'd love to see your presentation. I missed it. And you said it was available on YouTube?
It's on our YouTube channel.
Oh, it is. Can you link it from your website?
Yeah, we'll get that done somehow.
Right. I'll find it. I'm very interested. I thought the letter was great. And
you should see it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Any further questions on? Yes, Heather Roy, go ahead.
Maybe we could just clarify, because of all the different things we've said, what a yes vote and a no vote will mean.
Okay. So just so that you know, the motion on the floor is to adopt the motion that was written and circulated as attachment C, which basically is instructions to the city on how to go about ensuring, or asking them to clarify how they're going to go about ensuring that they actually comply with SB 9 in the hillsides relative to the various elements of the law that exclude lots on the basis of the presence of sensitive species or other environmental considerations, fire safety, et cetera. So it's very specifically written also so that a council member could actually introduce it as their motion, right? And so our ask will be to our council members both to say, here's a motion, SB 9's here, it's going to be implemented. We would like you to put this motion in to ensure that all of the exceptions to the SB 9 rules that were passed into law are actually implemented properly by the city. So a yes vote says, yes, we support that motion and we're going to send it into the city. We're going to file a CIS and we're going to advocate for it. A no motion means that we don't. A no vote, sorry, means that we don't. Is there someone like to call the question?
I'll call the question.
Thank you. Is there any objection to calling the question?
No.
Is there anyone who'd like to record a vote other than yes on this motion? Any abstentions? Okay, so hearing none, we'll do that. Under this same item, I believe Mr. Lowe's would like to be recognized to make a motion.
I move that we write a letter from the neighborhood council to the city attorney, copying the council people and the mayor, urging the city attorney to take all necessary steps to object to the application of SB 9 to the hillside areas of the city of Los Angeles on the grounds that it violates the ability of the city to make the determinations under the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Stoica, thank you. Is there someone for my benefit who wants to explain the 10th Amendment relationship to this?
The 10th Amendment says that the federal government has certain things, the states have certain things. The states have the ability to exercise those things for public health, welfare, and safety of the citizens. Now the question is, who exercises that? And I'm saying that in our case, it should be exercised for the health, benefit, and safety of the citizens of Los Angeles, and in particular, those of us who are in the hillsides. They've tried to make a grand motion across the state. I'm trying to make a specific protection for those of us here in the hills.
Thank you for that clarification. Does anyone like to speak on this motion?
Or correct my interpretation of the 10th Amendment?
Could we maybe broaden the motion up a little bit to give the, or I guess to make it, give the city attorney more flexibility to determine the legal basis upon which the SB 9 can be objected to? Like an including but not limited to kind of thing?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Because I know that, I think what you're trying to get at is that there's discussion right now about whether or not the legislature had the right to infringe on the right of charter cities in this way. And I think that you might be, there might be an argument there too.
As you described last night, that they've tried to very carefully say that this applies to the charter cities. But I think that the motion that I'm trying to suggest would give the latitude to the city attorney to determine if they want to object as a charter city or just go for it.
Let me,
okay. The legislature didn't have the authority.
So okay. in the interest, so let's just, if we can move along, we have people who are waiting around for other items on the agenda and a lot to get to still tonight. So unless there's someone who'd like to speak against the motion, raise your hand. Is there someone who'd like to call the question on this?
Call the question.
Okay. Is there any objection to calling the question? Seeing none, let me just reiterate. The motion is to write a letter to the city attorney that we object to the application of SB 9 to hillside areas on grounds to be determined by the city attorney, which would include but not be limited to violation of the 10th Amendment of the US Constitution. Okay, so Wendy, is that to speak on the motion or to?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got a few hands up. Okay, we're gonna hold off since that's an objection to call on the question. So go ahead, Wendy, and then Heather.
Sorry, I just need a clarification, maybe from Don. The 10th Amendment is federal against or with respect to state, but aren't we talking about a state law with respect to city?
Yes, we are. And the question is whether or not the state has violated that which has been granted to them under the separation of powers. And I don't know if it's a question that hasn't been answered before, but in this particular case, there's a grand bunch of activity going on up in the state to take over the planning in the city of Los Angeles. And I think this is an opportunity to resist that, as in particular, it relates to SB 9.
Thank you. Heather, go ahead.
Just confirming, you mean that it'll be drafted before the next meeting and we'll review it. It's not that the letter would just go forward. Is that what you mean, Don?
He's authorizing it to be written. So you want to clarify that?
Is that a question addressed as opinion for me?
Yeah, I mean, so sometimes we have passed motions that say, write a letter that says such and so, and that doesn't come back to the board. Maybe we want to include in it who would review it if you don't want to say that it would come back for review next month.
I'd like to, I think we can prepare one consistent with the kind of letters we've done in the past that don't have to come back to the board.
Right, so for example, the letter on the done policy on behavior was a directive from the board that then I just wrote the letter and sent it in.
Right. Does that satisfy you, Wendy?
It was Heather.
It's Heather. It's an answer, yes.
Okay. Let's call for the vote.
So Jamie, you have your hand up?
Well, I don't want to belabor this, but
okay.
AIDS Healthcare Foundation actually did file a lawsuit against SB 8. So was it 10?
10.
I thought it was 8. Okay, but you know, we might look at what their grounds were. I mean, a little bit of me is uncomfortable about just like asserting that it's the 10th Amendment that's the most strong, you know, the strongest argument without really giving too much thought to it. But I do support the concept that we should, you know, ask the city attorney to evaluate the legality of SB 9.
All right. So I think I would recognize Mr. Losey wanted to call the question. Is there any objection to calling the question at this point?
I would propose something different.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know exactly how this works, so I defer to your knowledge, but to form, there is a timeliness here. So we want to do this quickly, but we want to do it correctly. Maybe make an ad hoc committee and then have a portion of another meeting that's coming up, or just call a half-hour meeting to ratify it in front of everybody?
May I address that?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
I respect what your suggestion is, but I think the adequacy of what to do is authorized for the city attorney here. And I think we can have some confidence that they could take it seriously and do a better analysis than an ad hoc committee of ours.
Okay, Christy Holmes and Heather Roy.
Can you hear me? I'm not sure I understand at all at this point what this is about, how I would even vote, because I'm not really sure what we're addressing. Okay,
right.
Sorry.
So the motion is that we write a letter to the city attorney objecting to the application of SB 9 in hillside areas in Los Angeles on grounds to be determined by the city attorney that would include but not be limited to violation of the 10th Amendment of the US Constitution, which has been explained to us that it's a power that is not actually delegated to the states, and therefore that the state is overreaching its constitutional powers by messing about in local land use decisions, if I can colloquialize what the conversation has been.
Can I help a little bit with that, Travis?
Sure.
The state has been granted power.
Yes.
But in this case, I'm suggesting that the the state has over-exercised its power that should go to the city. This is between the city and the state.
Yep.
And we're suggesting the city stand up for us.
Heather, go ahead.
I move that we amend the motion that the executive committee would have to approve the letter.
Okay, so the executive committee meets on the 11th of next month. So the motion, so there's a motion to amend the motion on the floor to require approval of the executive committee before the letter is sent. Is there a second to that motion?
So moved.
I've got a question about that.
Okay, there's a second though. Go ahead, we can discuss that amending motion. Mr. Schlesinger?
Yes. I don't think there are any attorneys on the executive committee, and I'm not so sure it would be productive without one or some. Do we have an attorney on the executive committee? I don't recall at this point whether we do or not.
That would be me. I am.
You are? Oh, that's true, Jamie. You're right.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Okay. Next, we recognize Nikki Miner.
I think this is getting far too complicated. I mean, it's a direct, good thought. It's well presented. Send it.
Yeah.
In a month, we can send another letter.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on the amendment that has been proposed by Member Roy?
Yeah.
Mr. Stoika, go ahead.
Well, it's a very simple concept. We're asking the city attorney to be against SB 9 and oppose it, and to use his judgment in terms of how to do that. And it's a very simple direction to the city attorney, and there's nothing complicated about it. We can send, as somebody said, another letter for another thing next week, but at least we should be on the record for this.
Okay. Yes, so can we call the question?
And we should do it and do it fast. If we're going to tie it up in committees and debate the nickel and dimes, it'll never get done.
Okay.
Exactly.
I hear the question being called, which is a 2/3 vote. Is there any objection to calling the question on the amending motion, whether it goes to the executive committee first?
Not from me.
Okay, thank you. So all those in favor of sending it, and I'm just going to do this orally first before I try to count things. First, send it to the executive committee, say aye.
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 Not send it to the executive committee, say nay.
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 Okay, I think the ayes have it, but we'll go ahead and take the time to do a roll call since it's not as far as we wanted it. Okay, so a yes means that it goes to the executive committee first, a no means that it doesn't. So Barandas.
Nay.
Bayless. Garfield. Goodman. Greenberg.
No.
Hall. Holmes.
Yes.
Caden.
Nay.
Kennedy.
Nay.
Lavatman.
No.
Lowe's.
No.
Mann.
I'm abstaining.
Minor.
No.
Morris.
Yes.
Palmer.
No.
Roy.
Yes.
Sandler.
Abstaining.
Schlesinger.
No.
Stroloff.
No.
Steele. Stoika.
No.
Hanner.
No.
Wayne.
No.
Weinberg. Wimbish. Cobb.
No.
Quan.
No.
Garfield. Goodman. Okay, so the amendment doesn't carry. Just shows how loud people say aye and nay. So the amendment doesn't carry. We have the main motion on the floor. So is there objection to calling the question on that?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So going back to the original Jamie's letter, does that mean that this letter gets written to the attorney, but we don't to the?
I'm going to send both.
But we're not doing Jamie's letter anymore. That's the only.
We're doing both.
We're doing both.
That's what I could not understand.
We're doing both.
Okay.
Okay. So objection to calling a question. I didn't hear actually any objections. So should we do a roll call?
Why not?
Why not? Rhonda's. Yes is for Lowe's motion. No is against it. Bayless. Garfield. Goodman. Greenberg.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Holmes.
Yes.
Caden.
Yes.
Kennedy.
Yes.
Levatman.
Yes.
Lowe's.
Yes.
Mann.
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Palmer.
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Sandler.
Yes.
Schlesinger.
Yes.
Stroloff.
Yes.
Steele.
Yes.
Stoika.
Yes.
Tanner.
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes.
Weinberg. Wimbish. Cobb.
Yes.
Quan.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you. Next item is item number 17, planning director's memorandum regarding Mulholland Scene Parkway specific plan.
Yeah.
It's a motion to write a letter and file a CIS opposing the determination by the director of city planning, Vincent Bertoni, to remove design review board oversight, which eliminates in-depth reviews of impacts to parkland, scenic overlooks, scenic road corridors, wildlife corridors, riparian corridors, and the urban forest. There was an attachment there. Is there anyone from the public? Actually, would anyone like to move this item?
I'd like to speak to this, Travis. If
Okay, just hold on a second.
Okay.
Is there any member of the public here who'd like to testify on this item? Seeing none. Mr. Schlesinger, you'd like to move it?
I'd like to speak about it for just a minute if I can. I don't know if anybody understands completely what this is. I don't know if some people understand what this completely involves. The Mulholland Scenic Plan was adopted in 1992 and it brought by Councilmen Marvin Browdy and Zev Yaroslavsky and the Citizens Advisory Committee on the Mulholland Scenic Parkway. The object was to ensure that the design and placement of building and other improvements preserve, complement, and/or enhance views from Mulholland Drive, to reduce the visual intrusion caused by excessive lighting, to provide a review process of all projects which are visible from Mulholland Drive to ensure their conformance to the purpose and development standards contained in the specific plan in the landform grading manual. To that end, the City Council went further by creating a designated both inner and outer corridor. Let me explain this. The inner corridor is 500 feet on either side of the median on Mulholland Drive. That's the inner corridor. That's the one that Mulholland Design Review Board was left to do. The issue is that the planning director, through a communication, has negated the outer corridor, which is an additional 1,000 feet on either side of the 500 feet. So the Mulholland Design Review Board was reviewing 1,500 feet on either direction. They're now being narrowed to 500 feet and only what is visible. However, light towers, lighting, uplights, and everything else can go way beyond the 500 feet even though it's not visible, if you, at nighttime, if you look at the lights, if you see the lights, if you see a number of things that are taking place, okay, they can't review it anymore. And the problem is there is no longer public input. People who go to the Mulholland Design Review Board regularly, and I've been one of them, aren't going to have the opportunity for any kind of public hearing. The director of planning has funneled this down to the planning department downtown. And I am vehemently against that movement. Thank you, Travis.
Great. So I don't see any comments from the general public. So speaking on this motion, we'll start with Mr. Weinberg.
Just real quick, I have heard from many of the people living in my district about this particular issue. And I, on behalf of all of the people that I heard and everybody in the Franklin Coldwater District, we fully support the action that's proposed by the board, writing a letter and a CIS. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Seeing no one to speak against the motion, is there any objection to calling the question?
No.
Thank you. Is there any objection to a unanimous consent on this item? Anyone would like to be reflected as abstaining? Okay, great. So this will be passed by unanimous consent of those members present. Item number 18, 9712 Oak Pass Road, the retreat in Benedict Canyon. Motion is to write a letter.
Yeah.
Yep, and file a CIS in support of the motion by Councilmember Koretz, CF 210777, opposing the further processing of an application to develop commercial facility at 9712 Oak Pass Road. Mr. Schlesinger, you want to make the motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion, and I want to make a comment about this for people who are not familiar with this outside of Benedict Canyon.
Okay,
just basically one page. Rejection of the application for 9712 Oak Pass Road. The letter is in opposition to the proposed commercial hotel project in Benedict Canyon, also known as the Retreat in Benedict Canyon, recently affiliated with Bulgari Hotels and officially referred to as 9712 Oak Pass Road. The project is under the umbrella of the Air-Beverly Crest Community Plan. The proposed project was a result of countless hours of work on behalf of the community and the staff of the city, and that code required findings for amendments to the general plan established of a specific plan as enumerated in the city charter and municipal code. What this is doing is putting a brand new zoning law or a zoning ordinance into the hillsides, which has never been done before. It's only been done on the flats. The community plan specifies minimal grading, requires a development plan, and preserves the existing topography and natural resources. The proposed plan would require extensive grading, the removal of over 700 protected and significant trees. We are concerned that this plan would also create significant traffic, noise, and other issues for the community, including but not limited to increased fire danger in a very high fire hazard severity zone. Most importantly, the developer's efforts to circumvent the zoning, grading, and construction restrictions imposed by the current residential zoning, Bayside Hillside Ordinance, and Overlay District through the use of so-called specific plan, that's the zone they're looking to get, is not only contrary to established policies and good zoning practices, it would establish an irreversible precedent for future commercial development of the Santa Monica Mountains. If this were passed, every canyon from Griffith Park to the Pacific Ocean would be vulnerable when they say, look at this, look at what they did with the zoning change in Benedict Canyon, and all of them would be gone and the Santa Monica Mountains would be compromised forever.
Thank you. Mr. Bayless?
I've got to recuse myself on this item, so I just want to announce.
Thank you. Is there anyone like to speak against the motion? Seeing no one to speak against the motion, is there any objection to calling the question? And seeing no objection to calling the question, is there any objection to unanimous consent on this item? So seeing no objection to that, we'll have unanimous consent on this item with the exception of Mr. Bayless, who's recused himself. Next item is 19. Thank you, everybody. We might get out of here tonight. Let's pick it up. Report of the Outreach Committee. Vice President Greenberg, do you have an update?
I just want to thank the Outreach Committee. I'm going to name their names really fast. Mindy Mann, Nikki Miner, Robert Schlesinger, Andre Stoika, Heather Roy, Maureen Smith, Travis Long for ex officio. I want to thank all of the members of the Outreach Committee who have produced another wonderful newsletter, especially Andre Stoika, and it's available for you to read it. Please, please, please disperse it to each member in your homeowners associations, those who are representing homeowners associations. Thank you.
Thank you. Hear, hear. Report of the Traffic Committee. Chair Sandler, do you have any report?
Yes, I do. The Traffic Committee has not been dealing with our local traffic issues because we keep on hearing that we are getting out of COVID and things are in flux, which I believe they are. We do have a new SLO, and that's Sergeant Allen. Sorry about that. This is my phone. And some people have said that our crime has gone up, but I believe opportunistic crime has gone up, not so much related to traffic as related to break-ins of with the cars that are parked on the side of the road, mainly because they cannot park in the garages, if there are garages, of their homes. There's very little that we can do about it, sorry to say. So my thought is that if you want the Traffic Committee to try to work with the transportation arm of the city, then please let me know, because it really is a huge job. And right now we don't have a lot of support. I know that we all want this to get better, but we'd have to offer something to make it better. No comment?
Well, so people can get in touch with you directly to discuss this.
I would really like that, because our main agenda has actually been the 405 and the lanes that we've talked about for express lanes. We wrote a letter. The councilman wrote a letter saying that we did not want express lanes added to the 405. Okay. I have gone to a meeting yesterday, as a matter of fact, with Metro. Metro says they are working hand in hand with the Caltrans people, and they are acting as if, of course, they're going to go ahead with the express lanes. So I'm a little concerned that we do have them coming, and I think that should be one of our topics to find out. And I don't know that we actually sent our letter from the council to the, oh my goodness, to the Caltrans people. I'm going crazy.
Okay, thank you. Andre, go ahead.
I would like to say one other thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm concerned that we are not maybe up on what we should be when the people come to speak to us for that length of time from the actual committee. I don't know what I should say, the manager of the project for the, give me a hand here.
You're talking about the meeting next week.
I'm talking about the meeting next week. I'm talking about the very naive questions that were asked at the meeting that I attended yesterday. Yep. And the pat answer that on November the 30th, their scoping will begin. The scoping wants comments from the public, but they aren't answering any of our direct questions because they're not allowed to, they claim. So I'm a little concerned about our meeting getting stonewalled by the fact that they're not ready to do the scoping yet. So,
Okay.
how many people have actually attended any of those meetings from Metro?
I've watched
Yeah,
them.
I have.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. I mean, you know,
Yes.
we do have an obligation to educate ourselves as much as possible about this project before the meeting next week. They did go out of their way to go ahead and provide us people. Now, if they stonewall us, then that's information too, and it can contribute to how people approach this project. So I would come with your most sophisticated questions. I know we have people on this board and homeowners associations who are represented on this board who have very strong opinions about the project, very sophisticated questions that they'd like to know. We can't promise or know what they're going to answer or whether they're going to answer, but they will do it in public, and the questions can be aired in public, and you can communicate to, you know, our fellow board members and stakeholders and communities by having this conversation in public, which is what I want to encourage everybody to do. Read up on it. We didn't move on the UCLA station a meeting or two ago because people wanted to learn more about it. Use this opportunity to learn about what's being proposed. Whether you like the answers to your questions or not, we're going to be coming back to these issues at subsequent meetings of this board as well. So can I recognize Andre, please?
Yes, I'm just wondering, Irene, is the scope of the traffic committee include the streets of the community? I'm noticing specifically how suddenly Beverly Glen and Nakata are backing up, and the traffic is becoming extremely heavy. At one time, we had a traffic officer at Nakata and Mulholland who seems not to be there anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if the traffic committee could be of any help in that area.
Well, I certainly think we could.
Okay,
And
so
we'll have a meeting after our November 3rd meeting.
Yep.
And we'll include those things. And if anyone in your communities has an issue with traffic that you would like to have brought up, let me know, please.
Right, so let's ask everyone to forward items for the committee and or volunteer effort to work with the committee to Chair Sandler. So if we can move on to the next item, it's the ad hoc committee on home sharing and party house ordinances. We have a couple of motions. I know Ellen as chair is not here. Was there anyone from the committee who wanted to speak to these motions? I'll just go ahead and introduce them. Item 22, short-term rentals, unpermitted, non-compliant properties. The motion is to support and file a CIS on Council File 14-1635 S10 and to recommend the addition of the following provisions for investigation. On-site parking requirements for short-term rentals, special rights for neighbors, including a provision allowing neighbors to petition to have specific permits revoked, $1 million bond required to cover potential liability, tax assessor records consulted to verify primary residence, bar sublessors from receiving STR permits, designated responsible party required for each home share who must be able to be on the scene and handle problems within 60 minutes during the day and 30 minutes during the night. Units must be inspected for compliance, limit permits in places that already have a high concentration of STRs. Is there someone who'd like to move this from the committee?
So moved.
So move. I see Member Greenberg, Vice President Greenberg has moved. I saw a second as well from the committee. Is there anyone here from the public who'd like to speak on this motion? Go ahead and raise your hand or *9 if you're on the phone. Okay, I don't. Is there anyone, maybe someone from the committee wants to say a few words in favor of the motion to start? Or alternatively, is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? And with no hands going up, can we vote on this? Is there any objection to calling the question? I see none. Is there any objection to, let me just take a guess, unanimous consent and approval of this motion?
Can you repeat the motion?
Sure. It's to support and file a CIS on Council File 14-1635 on short-term rentals, recommending the addition of a series of additional provisions to be added to our short-term rental ordinance that included that list of 10 things that I just read 2 minutes ago.
Okay, very good.
Great. Any objection to unanimous consent? Hearing none, will be reflected as unanimous consent. Thank you. Home sharing registration suspension. This is to support and file a CIS on 141635S11 on home sharing registration suspension. There wasn't a lot more to this motion other than it's about suspension. Does anyone have further information they'd like to speak to this motion and someone to move it from the committee?
So move.
Moved by Vice President Greenberg. Anyone like to speak for the motion? It's recommended by the committee. Anybody against it?
Well, let me just be the devil's advocate here.
Sure.
You know, I always worry about registering homes and creating records with the city and all of that kind of thing. And it seems that we're starting a bureaucracy here of registrations and then forms and all of that. And I'm always uncomfortable with that. That's the gist of my feelings.
Thank you. Does anyone like to speak for the motion?
I would, yes. I'm on the home sharing committee.
Member Sroloff?
Yes, hi. The home sharing ends up to be our party houses in the hillsides. And we, oh, I heard someone make a comment. No, so we really need to do something to deter and make it harder to, to have these home share rental houses and legitimize it. So if we have a name on file, a lot of these homes are LLCs. So to track down the ownership of these homes that give parties and block our streets, just, we were saying earlier in the night, where streets are congested, it's not safe, and there are too many of them, and they're unregulated, and the city is not willing or not able to do anything about it. We've had Jared on our calls, and strengthening home sharing rules, I think, will help everyone with parking, party homes, construction, everything.
Absolutely.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak against the motion? Has everyone heard enough? Would like to vote? Okay. Hearing no objection to calling the question. Does anyone like to record a no vote on this motion? Anybody like to record an abstention? Okay, hearing neither of those two, we will record unanimous support for the motion as recommended from the committee. Item 24, Los Angeles City Council redistricting. I chaired the ad hoc committee on this. We have, as mentioned earlier, sort of taken the letter that we all did together and reiterated over and over again to the commission. They did make the changes that we recommended, so that the current map that's been recommended to the city council has us continuing to be represented by 2 council members, with the border between the 2 council districts being Briarcrest, so that Franklin Canyon, Coldwater Canyon, Benedict Canyon, Beverly Glen, and Bel Air are in CD5, and Laurel Canyon and North of Sunset, Doheny Sunset Plaza are in CD what is called 2 or 4 right now. So this has been left to the city council to decide what district that is. They did thank you everybody who got involved and called and sat on meetings and sent emails and whatnot. They heard us. I know they heard us because I sent a thank you to our representative from CD5, Rocky Delgadillo, and got a very nice acknowledgement back from him, saying that we had been heard and that we had done well by our community. So I would put forward a motion that we write a letter, and this was not heard by the task force, I just put it under here, to write a letter in CIS in support of the draft map forwarded from Los Angeles City Council Redistricting Commission to the City Council, which will simply reiterate what we've said in our previous letters, but also file a CIS. It is likely that this map gets changed because there's a lot of dissatisfaction, or enough dissatisfaction among leadership, I think, on the council, predominantly the council president, Mary Martinez, obviously members Rahman and Krikorian, because their districts get completely moved under this proposal. And they either lose like 70% or 100% of their district in the process. So I think it'd be appropriate to get a letter on file on this from us. And I guess someone should make this motion other than me. Is there anyone who'd like to make the motion for the agenda? So motion from Greenberg, second. It is seconded.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on this?
Well, I do have one question.
Yep.
It's just about our continued involvement. There's going to be a lot of horse trading in the next 2 months, and we have Christmas and Thanksgiving. So what's going to be our role here to continue to advocate for ourselves, and how are we going to be nimble enough to respond? So, you know, we have what, 70 days maybe?
Yep.
So I pose that question. I support the motion, but I pose that as a question for us.
Thanks. If I can answer as chair of the task force, we were able to go forward and file multiple CISs and testify in multiple meetings on the basis of the letter that we adopted. And the way we were able to do that is that we just kept reiterating the principles that we had. We put them all in the letter, we enumerated them, and then we just went and reacted to what was going on in every particular meeting by going back to those principles and saying, you need to do this. We've told you what to do. This is our community of interest. And so unless somebody can show me that that's actually not permissible, I believe that it is under both our bylaws and the charter for us to go ahead with our adopted position and respond to issues as they arise by going back to our adopted position and saying how those issues relate to it.
I think that's totally fine. I just want to alert everyone that, you know, the task force still exists and it's still going to have to be very active, I suspect.
Yep. Yeah. And we built a lot of good connections with specific neighborhoods that were particularly impacted by this in Coldwater and Franklin Canyon through this process. People who have a long history with the neighborhood council but aren't active anymore, and others. So
can I say just one final little thing here? Is just I just want to laud praise upon your leadership and the other leaders on the task force who did an excellent job advocating under evolving circumstances, trying to reconcile different interests and loud voices. And so I just want to say how I'm so pleased to, to support the motion and just I really want to thank you, Travis, and everyone else that's been involved. You've done an excellent job.
Thanks.
I agree with Jamie. Really tremendous. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I will say here, though, this only worked because we went through a democratic process and got everybody on board and knew what we wanted to say. So then it's just a matter of articulating that. But I do appreciate that, Jamie. Is there any objection to calling the question? Any objection to unanimous consent on the letter item number 24? Hearing none, we still have plenty of people here, so great. Next item, item 25, so is passed. Ad hoc committee on tree removals, update from Mindy Mann.
Oh yeah, I'm very briefly. Just there was one property in Stone Canyon, 966, and we wrote a letter in opposition to the removal of sycamore tree on that property. And the only thing I would say is it's kind of a theme we had this evening. And Steve Weinberg talked about it earlier, and that is there's no replacement for seeing something in person, and seeing what was going on there pretty much determined that we had to oppose the removal. So
well, thank you, because that's my next door neighbor. That will be, that's a lot now. So yes, we've been, thank you.
So good. So yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. The next item is the selection of a K through 6 private school representative. And it's not an accident that this is at the end of the agenda, because you have to make it through the agenda and see what goes on in order to want to, and then be willing to put your hat in the ring to be selected for this position. This position is a board position. It is a selected position, meaning that the board selects the person by a majority vote of the board. And the requirement is that the person has to have a substantial connection. Those are the exact words, a substantial connection to K-6 private schools in our territory. So the way that we have handled this, and I sent an email out about this a while ago, was that we will have public comment from those who are here and wish to be considered to be selected for the position. Then we'll take nominations from the floor. That is your right as a board to nominate. Then after we close the nominations, we will take another statement from each of the candidates if there's more than one, or the candidate if there is one, for the position, and then we will vote on it. So with that, I'll open the floor for public comment. So it can be if you want to support someone or if you would like to be considered for the position. I see Maureen Smith. Go ahead.
I would like to be considered for the position. And I think most of the board knows me, and I've been a board member for 7 years and successfully advocated for my constituents on the board by showing up consistently to board meetings and committee meetings. And I do have a connection to private schools. I have an academic background. I was in academic publishing for 25 years. I have a JD, a master's, and a bachelor's in English. I've attended private schools, which are vital to our educational system. I've taught English in Christiansburg, Virginia. I've taught peer mediation at the Alexander Science School at USC. I'm dedicated to giving back to my community as a volunteer for organizations that serve children, such as the Southern California Family Mediation, Kids Managing Conflict, and peer mediation for the Institute for Nonviolence. And I would really appreciate your support. And I think I would be a very, very good advocate for the K-6 private schools. Thank you.
Thank you. It's Maureen Smith. We have a caller with the number that ends in 588. Go ahead and unmute. I think that's *6. And talking should be.
Hi.
There you go.
Hi, this is my name is Stephen Prothero. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join this meeting tonight. I am the Director of Finance and Operations for the John Thomas Dye School. We're located on Chelan Road in Bel Air. I have been at the school for a little over 9 years now, and in my role there, I am responsible for the operational functions of the school, including neighborhood relations, buildings and grounds, and strategic planning. I take great pride in our school and our neighborhood, and when a past parent who previously served on this council informed me about the K-6 representative vacancy and open opportunity, I was not only honored and excited to engage with the council to participate in the nomination, but felt that my background and my skill set with my current position afforded me the ability to do a really great job and could make significant contributions to the group. I do look forward to learning more about the group and the issues that are facing the council and the neighborhood, and seeing how I can help facilitate that school partnership. I appreciate going last and not having participated in these meetings before, being put through that and seeing what kind of things you guys all talk about. But they face our school as well, and not only having the location of the school in the neighborhood, we also own several properties as well. So all of the same issues that everyone is facing, we face them as a school community. And I would appreciate the nomination and think that my expertise and background would make a great contribution to the group. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. So I don't see any other hands up. So
I have one.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, from the public. I should have been clear there. From the public. So we'll go ahead and take nominations from the board for this position of K-6 private school representative. Mr. Schlesinger, go ahead.
Yeah, what other school is covered besides John Thomas Dye? That's not the only one. That's not the only private school, I believe, but I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking the question.
Kathy Wayne, go ahead.
I have a nomination. May I do that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Maureen Smith, please.
Okay. Let me.
Robert's question wasn't answered.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. That's why I'm having a brain moment. Stephen S. Weiss Elementary.
I think, would the Marymount School also be in
Stephen
that?
S. Weiss is a religious school.
It is a private school, though,
It
and so let me just be very clear about this. Our bylaws have one seat for private schools K through 6, and the two named stakeholders for that seat are the John Thomas Dye School and Stephen S. Weiss Elementary School. Okay.
Well, John, I can't think of his last name now, served on our board for a long time.
Yeah, he was at Westlake, Harvard Westlake Middle School.
Wimbish.
Okay, so we have other private, so there is a private school grades 7 to 12 seat as well, which includes Harvard Westlake and Marymount House School. And that is John.
I was talking about the person that worked at John Thomas Dye when he left our board, but he was working at, he was the director, I think, of John Thomas Dye at one point.
Sure. So here we have one nomination from the floor. Is there anyone else who would like to make any nomination?
Yes, I'd like to nominate the person from John Thomas Dye.
The name, I believe, was Stephen Prothro. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, so we had both the people who've asked to be nominated. Would you like to hear anything more from the two candidates?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and actually, since their first statements are fresh of mind, Wendy, I think that was you who said yes?
Yes. My
What question would you like them both to answer?
I would like to know about their history. They told us a little bit, but more about their history working with schools. Were they teachers, etc.?
Okay, so we'll take them in the order that they spoke before. So Maureen Smith, let me make sure allowed to talk. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it. It was very garbled. I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, so Wendy Morris, can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, I'd like to know from each candidate what their experience as an adult with schools of the age group concerned has been. As it as an administrator, a teacher, a parent, etc.
Well, I was a peer mediator at the Alexander Science School, which is at USC, and I was working with kids managing conflict and peer mediation for the Institute of Nonviolence. So I taught kids in the 6th grade, actually. I taught them how to mediate, and it was an absolutely wonderful experience. And I personally do not have children, but I think I'm a tireless advocate on the board, and I don't think that just because I don't have children, I cannot advocate for that seat. And I think obviously education, private education is very, very important. It's a vital part of our society, and would like to be an advocate for that for the K through 6. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Prothro?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I have been in the independent school world for approximately 15 years, starting my career at UCLA, and then moving then to the Colburn School located in downtown Los Angeles. I have been at the John Thomas Dye School for approximately 9.5 years at this point. Like I said previously, I manage the finance and operations. I'm a school administrator. So I oversee everything related to facilities, security, maintenance of the campus, the finance department, handling legal affairs, neighborhood relations, etc. And as I also mentioned, we own other real estate interests in Bel Air. So there's, I have a breadth of knowledge and experience dealing with residential issues as it relates to both the neighborhood, city issues, and whatnot. Again, construction projects also come up, so I oversee all of the construction management and construction strategic planning for the school as well. So I feel like my background and my experience speaks to the needs and some of the things of how I can support the council and be a strong representative for both John Thomas Dye School and Stephen Weiss, located in the Beverly Crest area.
Thank you. Do you want to take another question, board? Anybody? Okay. So we've had 2 candidates nominated, and we've heard from them again. The process is we need a majority to be elected to the position, and we'll go through and give the name. When we call your last name, give the name of the person that you're voting for. The 2 candidates are Smith and Prothro. And then don't go crazy with this, but if you're uncomfortable and you want to pass, I will come back to you. If you just say pass, that's you can do that here. I understand it can be difficult sometimes. So we'll just go ahead and start. Barondes?
Abstain.
Okay. Bayless?
I actually had my hand raised. I had a quick question. Travis, can
I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you.
All right.
Yep.
Can you read the qualifications as it relates to the bylaws again?
Sure. Okay. Stakeholder at least 18 years of age at the time of the board meeting appointing them, with a substantial connection with private or faith-based group or institution, or custodian of open space, because it goes for that as well. And so that tracks back to this being the private school, K-6, and the 2 institutions that are named stakeholders for that being John Thomas Dye School and Stephen S. Weiss. So the key words are substantial connection.
So is it substantial connection to our K-12 schools that are listed in the neighborhood council, or is it just a substantial connection to a K-12 private institution somewhere, presumably in the neighborhood council?
So let me say that this is my interpretation, and that you could possibly interpret it differently. The way that I read it, given the history of the council and its bylaws, is that it is to represent the interests of those K-6 private schools in our territory. And my logic for that is in the past, another seat in this category, which is the custodians of open space, used to be appointed by the custodian of open space, which was the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. That power was taken away from it, but it was very clear that this was meant to connect to the sort of entity and have representation from it. So just the other board seats in this category are custodians of open space, that's my position, private schools 7 to 12, and faith-based institutions. And then each of those in the bylaws have listed the specific stakeholder groups that are associated with them with the word 1 seat next to it. So it says custodians of open space, and under that it says Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and then it says next to custodians of open space, 1 seat. And then it says private educational institutions K-6, 1 seat, and then it lists John Thomas Dye, Stephen S. Weiss. Then it goes private schools 7 to 12, it says 1 seat. It goes Harvard Westlake Marymount School, Marymount as well. So, and then under faith-based, it lists 3 faith-based institutions. Okay. So I don't mean to substitute my judgment for yours, but that's what's in there.
Well, that's the way I was kind of taking it as well. So but I wasn't sure. And I guess I struggle with this because, obviously we all know Mrs. Smith. So, but much like before, where a gentleman from the actual HOA that had not been represented for a long time showed up, I know I struggled then with regards to voting for someone I didn't know, but had a direct connection to the HOA versus someone we knew, but didn't have a direct connection. So okay. I'm going to pass for the moment, if you don't mind.
Okay. Garfield?
Prothrow.
Goodman. Greenberg.
Prothrow.
Hall.
Profo.
Holmes. Caden.
Pass.
Kennedy.
Smith.
Pass. Levatman.
Pass.
Lowe's.
Prothrow.
Mann.
I'm gonna say Prothrow, but I think that I'm in the same position that many of us are.
Yep.
And I'd like to vote for Smith, but I'm a bit, based on your description, I feel like I have to say Prothrow.
Minor.
Smith.
Morris.
Prothrow.
Palmer.
Prothrow.
Roy.
Prothrow.
Sandler. Savage. Not here. That's right. Schlesinger.
I feel the same way, but I think Prothrow is in a better position to be effective.
Stroloff.
Saying based on the bylaws, Prothrow.
Steele.
Sorry, Prothrow.
Stoika.
Smith.
Tanner.
Prothrow.
Wayne.
Smith.
Weinberg. Oh yeah. Wimbish not present. Cobb.
Abstain.
Kwan.
Prothrow.
Okay, so we had Bayless and Bronis abstaining. Goodman. I get no response. Holmes. I get no response. Caden.
Prothrow.
Kennedy.
I'm sorry, what are we doing?
I'm still taking the vote on this. I didn't hear you last time around.
Oh, Smith.
Okay. Levatman.
Prothrow.
Okay.
Travis, it wasn't my intention to I just said pass for the moment. Just
oh, because that was a pass. Would you like to cast a vote?
Yeah, Prothrow.
Okay. And Asher, yours was an abstention.
Correct.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, so Mr. Prothrow has been selected as the K-6 private school representative. And I think speak for everyone to thank Maureen for her continued interest and dedication to the community, the council, and participation. And it is not ignored, and it is certainly appreciated. So welcome, Mr. Prothrow. We'll get you onboarded shortly. So the next item is item number 27. It's election of chair and a vice chair for the Emergency Preparedness Committee. I'm nominating Vadim Levatman as chair of the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and based on prior consultation with Vadim, nominating Nikki Miner as the vice chair. You both accept?
Yes.
I'm honored. Thank you. And I'm honored to be working with Vadim.
Thank you. So this is subject to the confirmation of the board. Is there anyone who objects to the election of Vadim as chair and Nikki as vice chair of emergency preparedness? Thank you and congratulations. It is 9:30. Thanks everybody for sticking with us. Good meeting. We did a lot. We resolved some issues. We had agreements. We had disagreements. That's okay. We found our way through them. and it's good of the order. So I'm just going to sit back here for a second before we adjourn the meeting. If anybody has anything they want to share, welcome Stephen Prothro to the board. Thank you, Maureen. Anybody else have anything before you?
I have two.
Let's go.
I spoke to Larry Lyston. Actually, he called me today. He fell off of his bicycle and he broke his clavicle.
Oh no.
Having a surgery on that, to be followed a short time later by a surgery on another part of his body that he also injured in the same manner.
Oh no.
Boy,
that's horrible.
Oh
Can
dear.
we send him a card
Yeah.
from the board?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm serious.
Remember when Robin would send those cards, all the cards she would make us sign when she was president?
Yeah, we need to send a card.
Yeah.
We can, you know something, Robin? I think we can circulate a card, an electrified card, and have everybody sign it, passing it from person to person.
If
It can
you
be
can
an
figure that
electronic
out.
card. I've seen them.
Good idea.
Figure it out, Bob.
Okay. No, there's a lot of card companies that basically give you cards that are on the internet. You can take one off the internet and sign it, and as long as all of us sign it, why not? You want me to find a card? Is that what
Yes,
you're
yeah.
saying?
Bob, you're in charge of the technology.
Okay, I can do that between 11:30 and 12 o'clock tonight.
Perfect. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
No problem. I'll find it.
Everybody. All right.
Happy Halloween,
So
everybody.
as everybody leaves, I just want to say, as much as 2.5 hours is a marathon, and I appreciate it, your chairs and the volunteers on the committee do, you know, sometimes 10 times that over the course of the month, getting ready for these meetings. So if you're not on a committee and you'd like to join one, there are a few slots here and there, or attend them and make sure that you can keep up with these issues as we go through. That helps our conversations here at the board. The more you've heard sort of the discussion ahead of time. Of course, if we have more than a quorum at a meeting, we can't all talk, but it is good to get involved in committees, and we really do appreciate that time and the chairs who do all that work. So having no more business before us, the meeting is adjourned. Time is 9:32. Thank you much. Thank you also, Kathy Palmer, who is on here and keeping the minutes through all of this. Have a great evening, everybody, and stay healthy.
And Kathy,
Thank you.
Kathy Palmer had a birthday. Kathy,
Happy birthday, Kathy Palmer.
Happy birthday, Kathy.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, our great leader.
Okay. Bye.
Good meeting.
Night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
See you all.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.